welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Web of Weird. This is episode number 43. My name is David Farrell, your co-host for today, and as always, I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Pete Jackson Main. How are you, brother?
Hey, yeah, not bad. I feel obliged to add the word considering onto the end of, but that's nothing new about that, is there? But I feel like I just had this flash a moment ago that we were sort of piloting this web of weird ship through God knows what. I feel as though I am in a bit of a womb space at the moment. You can see it from, the kind of surround. We are kind of approaching midwinter here, short days, not much light around, and we're also in the middle of three storms in quick succession. The one that's going on out there at the moment is called Darragh, apparently. I drove home through one a few days ago, which was called Oisin. So there seems to be a theme emerging here of a sort of blame the Irish. And I know it's been worse in the West and in Ireland than it has been here, but it's sort of adding to this impression of sort of overweening darkness. And I don't really mind it as long as I don't have to go anywhere.
Right, yeah. Well, let's just pull up the first of the stories for today. This is on Sky News, Storm Darragh, major incident declared. We've had so many major incidents in the last 4 years, many of which weren't that major, that these kinds of scare tactic titles don't always mean very much. It's a bit like when we see a 350% increase in certain nefarious viruses passing through the world, only to realize that a 350% increase on two people is just three people. And those kinds of figures that sound very scary until you look into the details. But yeah, I mean, wind speeds of 93 miles per hour look pretty real. So I think that we can perhaps, particularly with you on the ground, rule out that this is complete hoaxing and scare tactics, which we'll get into a bit later in today's call. But how is it on the ground, and why are the Irish getting blamed for this, bro?
Well, I have no idea. I mean, I think it's an interesting one. The Irish were blaming us there's a couple of Irish things going on at the moment, actually. And one is that um, the Irish seem to think that the British supermarkets who've colonized Ireland are responsible for introducing this new animal feed into into their food supply that they didn't have before, but I'm sure they did. I don't know whether you picked up on this. It's the Bovaer scandal.
Right.
That's one thing which I think we're going to talk about, and the other thing is Guinness, of course, which is another thing we're going to talk about, and the rationing of Guinness, but not within Ireland, only to the UK, because apparently UK youngsters have decided that it's the party drink now. That to be cool, you have to be drinking Guinness, and they have themselves, photographed on and put their selfies out on social media of them drinking Guinness, which who knew, how did Guinness become a party drug? It's a working man's drink, surely, So we've got two things flying back and forwards between the UK and Ireland, apart from, of course, a storm as well. So I don't know what's going on there. I have lots and lots of friends in Ireland. They keep me abreast of what's going on, and this is where I get some of these little gems from. Particularly the one about, I think it's Tesco's fault that Ireland has now got Bovaer in it, or something. But yeah, this is the cow feed, which I can't. Have to check on what it's actually called. It's called Bovaer, but it is actually something called 3-nitrooxypropanol, combined with something called 3-nitrooxypropionic acid, which of course is completely perfectly safe.
Sounds
It's
it.
safe, and it's so safe that you have to wear PPE to handle it, and it's not fit for human consumption, but it doesn't apparently come through into the dairy milk, so we're all absolutely perfectly safe. Arla Foods, who's a massive European food company specializing in dairy produce, based in Denmark and Sweden, I think, but who
Yeah.
supply a lot of supermarkets with dairy produce. And they've sort of crept up on us too. There's a massive conglomerate food company that I'd never heard of Arla before, and yet now that the badge is all over the place, the branding, the logo, I kind of realize it's gone in there. It's in the supermarket branding, but of course I never buy those products, so I don't really know about it. But it just does occur to me that things are getting a little bit dangerous out there in the food market at the moment. Not that they probably always haven't been, but there are also all sorts of other things. I think you picked up on something about crumpets and porridge as well, which we're going to have a go at in a minute. But I'm watching all my comfort foods sort of vanishing into this tunnel of no longer kosher or no longer safe to indulge in. I don't eat many dairy products, but I am partial to a bit of cheese here and there. Yeah, there we go. Guinness.
Yeah, so I'm skipping around a little bit, so apologies for that because I have a slide deck here with some links, but a little bit all over the place. So yeah, Pete alluded here to a story that caught our attention, primarily because I think we do like a pint of the dark stuff once in a while. And of course, anyone who's ever been to Ireland will know that you can't really do anything in Ireland until you've been straight to the pub and had your first Guinness. The country just simply won't allow it. It's a time-honored tradition, particularly if you are Irish descent. But generally, it's accepted that this is the best way to get accepted into Ireland. At least I always found that personally. And yes, Guinness has decided to ration supplies to British pubs as its popularity soars with Gen Z, and no doubt helped by wonderful people like the not at all nefarious Miss Kardashian, who's not been at all in the news on this side of the pond in any way related to anything to do with the entertainment scandals around Mr. Diddler or any of these other things. So clearly a very good role model for Gen Z to be following, as with all of these things. And yes, and I also have here the other story that quickly that Pete was alluding to, which is crumpets and porridge officially categorized as junk food. All very, very concerning stuff, if indeed it's true. But I'm wondering, bro, what we should be most concerned about, the junk food that are crumpets and porridge. I'm not such a fan of porridge, but I do like crumpets. And I do like a pint of
Same
Guinness once in
here.
a while.
Same here. I mean, I had a couple today, and I'm thinking the crumpet now is junk food. It's got too much salt in it, apparently. I mean, I love salt too. There we go. I'm just completely off the page where this is concerned. And of course, I love nothing better on crumpets actually than proper butter. I don't like the plastic margarine stuff they do. Proper butter, proper unpasteurized, actually French butter, but maybe we won't make too much of the French connection there. Given
Maybe
given
we'll
what
get
we're
into some
talking about.
Franco
Um,
stuff in a while, but let
yeah,
me just loop back to this. So I mean, to all intents and purposes, bro, you're for a bad run here because your butter is probably going to
I
be
know. It
somehow, I guess,
contaminated. Yeah. But
contaminated.
contaminated. But Arla Foods assure me, Arla has actually today, I just logged into it, put up a massive disclaimer, rebuttal, kind of fact check thing to try and reassure everybody that it's actually perfectly safe. So we trust them, of course, don't we?
Well, why would we not? And perhaps we'll get into some of those characters that we love to trust, including good old Don Fauci, who's been in the news this week, and we'll come to that story a bit later on. But as always, if we follow the science, as we've been told, we can't go wrong, unless, of course, it's by people like Mr. Fauci, in which case maybe we shouldn't follow it. But getting ahead of ourselves there. So, what do we make of all of this, bro? Because on this side of the pond, I'm also seeing similar stories around brands like Hershey's, for example, that perhaps are now under the spotlight of people like Mr. Kennedy, who, of course, has been ushered into the new cabinet of Mr. T as part of this broad-ranging series of nominations, which have had a few ups and downs, and we'll have a look at some of that in a while too. But what do you think about all of this? I mean, we're used to being poisoned, right? I mean, we're going to also have a look at some other stuff to do with being poisoned from the air in a little while. That's something that we were talking about before we jumped on record, to do with what's in the sky and what may or may not be being dropped on us. And I also want to bring to the mix here something else, which is on QPW. We've currently running a course called Heaven on Earth, which is really looking at how to work with our inner elemental energies. And later today, actually, we're going to be releasing the module on air. And we've been following this principle: as above, so below, as within, so without. And it's given me pause for thought in the middle of recording all of this. Is like, well, our skies are polluted, our water is polluted, and our earth is polluted. Which, by the way, is probably a reflection of inside here, because I would say in general that given the amount of crap that's been thrown at all of us, probably our entire lives, as we'll look at in a bit more detail in a minute, is that we're probably quite polluted and poisoned beings. And as a herbalist and practitioner in this world, as you are, and at the energy level, me too, I would concur with. So what's your takeaway from all of this, Pete?
Well, this is an interesting question and one that I have been doing battle with because I have just recently finished the manuscript of the next book, which is coming out next year. It's simply called Natural Healing, and it's an attempt actually to reframe for the 21st century the humoral medicine concept of the six non-naturals. Now, a lot of humoral medicine deals with, the reality of the world that we live in, and the elements that you mentioned, the air, fire, water, and earth, are very much part of how they saw reality being made up, both the physical world that we look at, but also our own bodies and ourselves. And we have the methods of sort of looking at ourselves from the perspective of what are called the humors, or sometimes also the temperaments, because the emotions and the sort of psychological things were not thought to be separate from the body. This is a big part of what I'm saying. But the other side of that, so we're dealing with our own sort of physical reality and how that works, and what we each are constitutionally, a blend of all those elements in particular forms, giving rise to our personality, our behavior, our physical characteristics, and of course our tendencies regarding sort of health and disease as well. But on the side of that, there's this concept of what's called the six non-naturals, which is supposed to hail back to Claudius Galenus, or Galen as he's popularly known, who was a second century Roman physician who developed the Hippocratic work to kind of give it more detail, flesh it out, provided some more sort of experimental results, if you like, from his own work. And it probably doesn't date back quite that far. It's probably a later construction of what he was saying. But it comes down to the whole thing, which naturopaths know very well, which is, if you want to live right, you've got to do certain things to make that happen. You've got to eat properly. You've got to exercise. You've got to rest appropriately. You've got to get rid of your, waste products, excrement, etc. You've got to make sure your relationships are supportive and conducive. And amongst those, because that's five, the sixth, or in amongst those six non-naturals, is ambient air. And it's often occurred to me that I don't know what concern anybody would have with air quality 2,000 years ago, but it seems that it has been thought about prior to this, and the idea that the quality of the air that we breathe is of significance in our health is, of course, something that I think today we're very much aware of. But it's not a new thing. I mean, we look back and maybe 150 years to the Victorian era, when London was was smog city, because everybody was
Right.
coal and the atmosphere then. So we've been aware of in the post-industrial age of this whole matter of air quality, and probably never quite as much as we are currently, because of this other feature which we have talked about quite a few times, of the so-called chemtrails.
Right. And I think this is probably about the point that we're going to need to jump to our Rumble channel. So if you want to know a bit more about what we're going to get into here, please do follow us over to the Rumble channel to watch the rest of this show, because I just realized that we're likely to get ourselves into trouble if we keep talking too much more about this on the YouTube. So we'll see all of you for the remainder of this episode over on Rumble, where we're going to get deeper into perhaps what is going on and why this ambient quality is a little more important than perhaps we've been led to believe. So we'll see you all very shortly over on the link below on our Rumble channel. See you all shortly.